Hello everyone, welcome back to Best Recaps Movie. Today we show you an exciting action movie, Transporter 3. Stay with us until the end of the movie. Be careful, spoilers ahead. In the beginning, two crew members of a ship are looking for liquor bottles in Section 101. After opening the container, they notice a foul smell. The ship's captain says we will reach the port in less than 1 hour. Out of curiosity, they pick up one of the barrels that fell on the ground. When they open the barrel, they see a toxic and foul-smelling substance, and the ship's alarm goes off. The captain and his masked troops quickly investigate further, but are confronted with their infected corpses, so he orders them to be dumped in the water. Frank. Having returned from Miami to the French Riviera, they are unsuccessfully fishing with his friend, Inspector Tarconi. We will see in the next scene, with a girl in the back of the car, Malcolm tries not to run into the police. However, one of the police officers at the French customs suspects him, and Malcolm immediately runs away and manages to outrun the policeman. Tarconi receives a call about a black Audi A8 that sped past French customs and evaded the police in a car chase. Tarconi returns to headquarters to give Frank's alibi. In Odessa, Ukraine, Deputy Minister of Environment Leonid Vazilev is holding a press conference. At the same time, Johnson, the corrupt official of EcoCorp, arrives in Odessa with a private plane to reopen business negotiations. Leonid enters his office while there is an envelope on his desk. While watching him, Johnson calls on the phone and he claims to be the negotiator for commercial licenses. Leonid flatly rejects it because he cannot allow the discharge of chemical pollutants for profit, but he kidnapped his daughter to force the minister to sign it.
I'll be in touch.
Frank has eaten his dinner and is resting on the bed when suddenly a car crashes into his house. Malcolm, the driver of the car, was severely injured. Looking at his ID, Frank remembered a few days ago when he refused to deliver a package. He had an intense conflict with them for not accepting their request. Frank calls an ambulance to treat him, but Malcolm says not to leave the car.
Not far from car.
An ambulance arrives and takes him for further treatment. Frank finds the girl in the back seat. She asks Frank to help her, but she should stay close to the car and shows him her bracelet. Frank, who notices a distance-sensitive bomb, rushes to save Malcolm, but unfortunately, the ambulance explodes. Frank comes back but is punched in the face and faints. Frank wakes up while still confused and is given an explosive bracelet. He wears the clothes intended for him, and at the same time, Johnson enters the room. Frank does not accept his request to transfer the package, and on the other hand, Johnson kills one of his men for talking.
Boss, can I say something?
He gives Frank 3 seconds to accept the transfer, and Frank gets it on the condition that he has his car. Johnson gives him his favorite car and provides the necessary equipment for Frank. Johnson considers him the most suitable person for this job and hands over some packages to him. Frank sees the girl and tells Johnson that he is only working alone. Still, after seeing that Johnson will kill her, he accepts Valentina's company.
But you want to change the rule?
Every rule has an exception. Let's make one for today.
After that, Johnson warns him about the explosive bracelet that explodes at a distance of 75 meters. He also gives him a private phone and some money for gas. Frank begins his journey with that girl. Tarconi visits Frank's house, and the police impound the car for more information. Back to the minister, who can't sit idly by while his daughter is being held hostage, he decides to hire agents to rescue her. The agents attack the police and kill the driver. They steal the GPS of the previous car and gradually follow it. On the other hand, the captain wanted to unload the cargo but told him the contract must be signed. After a little conversation, Frank and the girl get to know each other. She introduces herself as Valentina.
Valentina.
Pleased to meet you.
Then Frank asks her questions about Malcolm, but Valentina says she doesn't know him. He turns on the location, and it shows Budapest. Tarconi investigates the accident scene and notices that the agents have removed the car's GPS. Johnson's representatives under the Ego Company come to sign the contract. The minister realizes that there is more than one ship carrying contaminated materials.
8. This year.
He decides to delay signing the contract for 24 hours to buy enough time to save his daughter. Leonid immediately calls his agents, who have only 24 hours to save his daughter. The ship's captain also, who is waiting at customs, accepts a 24-hour delay, but not more, during a call with Johnson's representatives. Tarconi finds a picture of the minister's agent's car near the German border captured by radar cameras. Frank deviates from the designated path. He goes to one of his mechanic friends to get rid of the explosive bracelet. Johnson learns of his change of direction and sends people to warn him. His friend informs him about the design of this weapon by the Pentagon, which is controlled through a transmitter inside the car. Johnson's men enter the mechanic shop and ask him to return to the car.
Some things in the car are a bit off. Needed checking.
Frank refuses and asks his friend to continue to find the sender. In this case, a complex and exhausting conflict is formed between them. Valentina is attracted to his masculinity during the fight and watches him with pleasure. She helps Frank to get dressed, and on the other hand, his friend finds the sender inside the car. He tells Frank that the bracelet will explode if he removes it. After that, Johnson calls Frank, and Frank says that if he continues, things should go according to his opinion, and Johnson also says,
Same place, 1 hour. Wait for my call.
He arrives at the meeting place, and Valentina is asleep. The phone in the street rings, and Frank picks it up. Johnson says he decided to fire her after their call. At the same time, another person gets into the car and leaves. Frank follows the car to prevent his bracelet from exploding. He surprisingly reaches the car and throws the driver out.
Fired.
Afterward, Frank calls Tarconi, and after a little conversation, he gives him the necessary information. Frank then calls Johnson. He says let's get to work, also pretending that he has no problem continuing to work with him and transporting the packages to their destination so that Tarconi can know Johnson's location and report that to Frank. Of course, Johnson gives him the new coordinates to deliver the packages.
I look forward to it.
They move towards Bucharest. Along the way, Frank calls her a Russian girl, but Valentina says she is Ukrainian. Valentina, who is now closer to him, turns up the car stereo and has some fun. Frank stops for gas, and Valentina enters the store to shop and use the bathroom. With Frank's objection, she continues to drink, and at the same time, the agents of Minister Leonid see her on the side of the road. Frank drives Valentina into the car while drunk. While the agents are chasing him, he calls Johnson, thinking the agents are Johnson's men, which Johnson denies.
Drive faster.
Frank miraculously weaves between two trucks and veers off the road. Frank brakes and pushes the agent's car from behind when their speed increases, sending them into the valley. After that, Frank is confused, and Valentina massages the back of his neck. Frank gets curious, and after opening the packages, he finds only ordinary books. In this case, Frank realizes that Valentina is the package.
You're the package.
She takes the switch off the car and tries to use it to seduce Frank. They sleep with each other, and Johnson misses them because of their situation. Valentina tells Frank everything about her kidnapping. That they poisoned him with champagne and took him hostage. Malcolm was also responsible for his transportation. When Malcolm cooperates with him and agrees to his contact with his father, he is shot by Johnson's men before informing his father. Frank sympathizes with her and kisses her. Johnson warns Leonid about the people who disturbed Frank, and the minister also says that he will not beg until I hear my daughter's voice and then threatens him. Minister Leonid prepares for the conference, but Tarconi prevents him from entering the meeting.
It's about your daughter.
Johnson sends him new coordinates about Odessa, Frank's final destination. Now, a deep feeling has formed between Frank and Valentina. Valentina is happy they are going to Odessa, where she lives, and she tells Frank that she feels safe with him. Tarconi calls Frank and tells him why they hold the minister's daughter hostage, that his life is in danger because of signing the contract to import toxic waste. Johnson threatens the minister to sign the contract. Still, Leonid insists on buying time to hear his daughter's voice before signing.
Have that pen ready, I'll call you back.
Johnson directs Frank to a path that leads to a bridge to deliver Valentina there. Frank drives onto the bridge, surrounded from front and behind by Johnson and his men. Johnson asks Frank to let her go, but Valentina refuses. She tells Frank, "They will kill you."
But they will kill you.
I look like a man who came halfway across Europe to die on a bridge.
They say goodbye, and Frank promises to have dinner with her, and after they kiss, Valentina goes to Johnson and his men. Valentina goes to Johnson with tears in her eyes, and after opening his handcuffs, he orders his men to kill Frank. Frank's car becomes the target of their shooting, and Frank decides to enter the lake. They continue to shoot him. Before the car fills with water, Frank tells Tarconi his position and that the girl is in their hands. Then he gets out of the car and loads the package covers with the air tube of the car until the car doesn't fall and his bracelet doesn't explode. Frank manages to save himself from death with this clever trick. Tarconi reaches him and sees Frank coming out of the water with his car, and after a while, Frank manages to start the car. Johnson and his men stop a train and send all the passengers out. He arranges a conversation between Valentina and her father, Leonid. However, she asks the minister not to sign.
Don't sign.
And Johnson gives him 15 minutes. With the help of Tarconi, Frank finds Johnson's location through radar and tries to get to the train. On the other hand, Johnson calls his representatives to pressure the minister to sign the contract, and the minister tries to save time. Frank quickly reaches the train by tracking his location.
What's so funny?
Frank then waits on top of a bridge, and just in time, he thrillingly lands the car from the top of the bridge onto the train. After that, Frank kills everyone with high concentration and speed. Valentina goes to the end of the wagon, and Johnson follows her. Frank approaches him to take revenge on Johnson. Still, his wristband gives a red warning, forcing him to enter one of the wagons with his car.
Come on, one.
This time, Frank brings the car closer to him and goes to Johnson with more relaxed. A fight develops between them, and Johnson attacks him with a knife. Frank, whose ability in the fight is acceptable, finally knocks him into the car, opens his handcuffs, and leaves after tying the car's seatbelt to Johnson. After not hearing from his daughter, the minister decides to sign the contract. On the other hand, Frank helps Valentina, and they kiss each other. Tarconi immediately informs Minister Leonid that his daughter is safe, and after that, Leonid breaks the contract. The personnel and the ship's captain, that was carrying toxic waste, were also arrested by the police. At the movie's end, Tarconi and Frank are fishing, and Tarconi talks about the change in Frank's personality. Valentina, lying on their boat, gets up and suggests Frank and Tarconi eat fish in a restaurant instead of fishing. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel.